G'day. It's always difficult when you've got a complicated story to tell and condense it down into a few minutes. But I implore you, please watch this full video. It's about the welfare of our country, you, your family, your children, your grandchildren, your descendants and so on. I've tried to keep it as brief as I can, but I implore you, please watch it through to the end. Just get it in your mind to spend the next 15 minutes to help your country, because we are in trouble, and I believe I have the way to resolve our problem. You'll be amazed at what you see, I promise you. And you'll also love what I propose at the end to overcome our problems. Sounds big deal, sounds like a wanker, I know. Please, I beg you, watch the whole video. G'day Australia. Well, it seems a bit odd, me telling you who I am, because so many of you know who I am now. I've got a couple 100,000 people know who I am, but I'm hoping that you will help me today, as you've done before, and spread this video far and wide, because it's by far the most important and perhaps even unpleasant video that I've done. And for those that don't know me, I've got over 100 videos on YouTube, most of them at #1. The website is there. Les Power is my name. I'm the founder of the Will of Australians. For what it's worth, I've spent 5 years searching for the way to save my country and my fellow Australians, because believe it or not, we are in a lot of trouble, much more than most Australians know. We're told by the media and by the politicians, no, everything's going along beautifully. Yeah, no, it's going along right. That's bullshit. We are in deep trouble. The whole world's in trouble. I mean, most people know that. But we're immune to it in some ways. We're so lucky to be here in Australia. But that can't make us immune to the reality. And the reality of it is the Australian people have got no alternative. We have to unite, and we have to take advantage of the rights that we've got under the Australian Constitution, which I will guide you through that. And I've got a particular thing that I want to talk to you today about: selling your assets. Selling assets that belong to the Australian people. We have sold billions of dollars worth of your assets. Have you got your share? I never got mine. I don't know anybody that did. The politicians are telling us it's good for Australians to sell assets. That's because it makes their bloody job easier, that's all. That's the only reason why you would sell assets in a thriving country like Australia. I mean, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about anyway. The only reason you sell assets is for two reasons. One, you're going to reinvest the money into a more higher return investment, or two, you're bordering on bankruptcy. Regrettably, I'm here to tell you that we're, well, not bordering on bankruptcy, but we're certainly in financial trouble. I'm going to show you some figures in a minute, but you'll need to sit down first, but I'll warn you. I've got a plan that I need your help with. I believe I can do it. I'll do the work, but I need your support. And I'm going to show you now. In fact, I'm going to show you a few excerpts from various interviews and what have you. The first one is Bob Katter, who most people know. I personally admire Bob Katter. He's a tenacious man. He knows what he's doing. He's a dead-set, down-to-earth Australian. He loves his country, and he doesn't take any garbage from anybody. And Bob Katter delivered this speech in the Parliament, and I want you to have a look at it now.
The member for Kennedy.
Treasurer, biggest farm in Australia, Van Diemen's Dairies, owned by China. Second biggest cubby, owned by China. Biggest grain farm, Nicoletti, owned by China. Biggest farming aggregation, Kidman's, controlled by China. Biggest of all stage 2 and 3, owned by China. Australia's most strategic port, Darwin, owned by China. Textile industry, Yuba, foreign owned. Car manufacturing, glass, textiles, petrol, white goods, all gone overseas. To we Australians, free trade means jobs exported, cheap labour imported. Treasurer, do we have a new regime that won't continue to sell off Australia, or is it business as usual, Australia for sale?
I want you to just take stock of what we've just seen and heard. These people are selling your country. Not only are we not going to become a wealthy country anymore, because you can't have wealth, most people will agree I'm sure, you can't have wealth unless you've got an enormous amount of money in the bank or you've got assets that make you money. Now we haven't got a huge amount of money in the bank. In fact, I'm going to shock you and show you how much money we haven't got in the bank in a minute. But we're also subjecting ourselves to risk, which I'll also show you in a moment. These people have got to be told, please don't sell any more of Australia's assets. And the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution gives you and me those rights. If we tell the politicians no more sales, they can't sell them. That's the way the Constitution works. I'll do the work, but I need your support to do it. Now, I'm going to show you now another clip. It's not a long one. Two people that we all know very well, Alan Jones and Malcolm Turnbull. This was done when he was Prime Minister. You'll see the point of it, I'm sure, when you look at it.
But you'd think he'd take this to the Cabinet. You'd think it'd be discussed by the government. This is the point. Now, this week we learn that South Mole Island on the Whitsundays, the jewel of the Whitsundays, gone to the Chinese. Daydream Island, gone to the Chinese. Lindeman Island, gone to the Chinese. Port of Darwin, gone to the Chinese. They reckon Renmark Airport's going to go to the Chinese. Now, Paul Dibb, the Emeritus Professor of Strategic Studies at the Australian National University, has written this week, quote, "We're living in an exceedingly dangerous world that is challenging the core values of our Western civilization. The fact is, Russia and China, both authoritarian powers, are challenging the Western liberal order through the use of military force and coercion." Now, these people are bullies of the worst order, and Scott Morrison is opening the door, selling them everything they want: dairy farms, beef farms, South Mole Island, tourism, now perhaps electricity. You're the Prime Minister. Can you put a stop to this nonsense? They've got control. PM, the Port of Darwin, the Port of Melbourne, the Kimberleys, Van Diemen's Dairy, Northwest Victoria, South Mole Island, Daydream Island. My God. And now, here we are up in the Kimberleys, 476,000 hectares. The people listening to me, PM, across Australia are saying, will Malcolm Turnbull stop this Chinese economic invasion?
Did you get onto a couple of things there? Port of Melbourne's now gone. Thanks to our Premier Daniel Andrews, and almost 1 million acres of Victorian land. 1 million acres. I want you to think about, we were handed, people died for this country, as we all know, and this generation was handed the best country in the world, acknowledged as the best country in the world, the lucky country. We've got to ask ourselves, with all of this insanity that's going on, and I'm going to show you some more in a second, with all this insanity, what are we going to pass on to our next generation, and so on? Your kids, and their kids, and their kids' kids. Peter Costello, our ex-treasurer, did a nationwide interview tour, and he said, and I quote, "Our great-grandchildren will not be able to pay off the debt that we have created." That's an absolute bloody disgrace. And it all comes down, in my opinion, it all comes down to fiscal management, or management of our money by our politicians. We've got immigrants coming into the country that are costing us a fortune, people living on welfare. I mean, it is just an absolute bloody disgrace. I said to you earlier, I warned you to sit down, and perhaps now's the right time, because I just want to quantify. I mean, all of my supporters already know all this stuff, but as I said, I'm hoping you'll help by spreading this video far and wide, because millions of Australians need to see this. When Kevin Rudd came to power in 2008, we had approximately $50 billion in the bank. Interest rates were higher then, and we were getting approximately $400 million. Sorry about that. I chopped off. We were getting $400 million per month interest on our money. Sorry about that. Now that's 50,000 million. It's a lot of money. Fast forward to today. I hope you're sitting down, because here's what we haven't got in the bank now. I fairly likely think you'll find that figure as unbelievable as what I do. Compared to 50 billion in the bank 10 years ago to $867 billion in debt now is extraordinary. And it gets worse. I was just fascinated with that figure, and I just couldn't visualise it. So to hopefully help you to do the same, I started to work out what that would look like in real terms. And I worked it out, and I thought, there's no way. I'm not bad with figures, but I thought, no way, can't be right. So I did it again, same thing. No, it can't be right. So I asked the help of someone else. They came up with the same figure, well, sorry, slightly different figure. But in the end, I did it 5 times. I had the help of David, Rachel and Maria, which I thank them for. We all came up with the same figure. I'm standing by it. Believe this or believe it not, the figure that we're in debt as Australians are the equivalent of 117 semi-trailers full of $100 Australian bills. You might have to pause the video or rewind it to say it again, but I can assure you it's true. It is just an extraordinary amount of money. Now, I believe our politicians have allowed our country to deteriorate. I won't be too specific about that, but I'm sure you've got your own views. But we have a constitution, and the constitution gives us rights. They are what's known as inalienable rights. In other words, they can't be taken away from us. And we have the right to tell the politicians what to do, what not to do, what we will accept and what we won't accept. And I urge you, please, Australia, think about what I'm saying and what I've said. I believe it's time the people stood up and took advantage of the rights that we have. And the only person that can do that is you. The politicians have tried to do it and failed. The business community has tried to do it and largely just screwed us. Cost of living is higher than it's ever been. Our politicians, as I've said in the earlier part of the video, are selling off your country and your children's country. And it has to stop, in my view. And again, I say, the only person that can stop it is you. I beg for your help. I really do. There is another thing that's very, very important. Alan Jones alluded to it a few minutes ago, or a few minutes ago. And that is a matter of security. Now, I've got a lot of Chinese friends. I've got no problem with the Chinese. I embrace them wholeheartedly. However, this is our house. We're responsible for it. And I want to introduce you to a man by the name of Peter Jennings, who's the Executive Director of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Now, these people are not politicians, they're not salespeople, they're not real estate people. These are people that properly look at the situation and they tell it like it is. This is Peter Jennings. I'll put him up on the screen. Now that's Peter, as I said, he's the Executive Director. I'm not going to do the video, I'm just going to do a still. But this is what Peter Jennings tells us. If the CKI bid goes through, which it may or may not, this is what the Chinese will own of our gas and electricity. Stand by, it's going to shock you.
Wow, those figures are scary. So what exactly does this mean in terms of our national security?
Well, it seems obvious to me, although perhaps not to some others, that this does present a national security problem to Australia. Effectively, through a series of piece-by-piece decisions over the last decade, we've really allowed the majority of our electricity and gas infrastructure to now be held by a very small number of overseas companies.
Okay, we've got through the bad part, and believe me, it is worse than what we've just seen. But we can resolve it, providing we unite and we act. Hope you don't mind me saying, the Australian people have got to realise we've got lots and lots of people now supporting us. We've got enthusiastic supporters, you know, egging us on, and I'll do the work. But I have to say to you, it's useless clicking like, even though I like it, or putting a comment up on Facebook. Doesn't do anybody any good whatsoever. I mean, we've got hundreds of thousands of comments and likes and what have you, but it's only people that are prepared to pay the $6, subscribe, get the interim report. When you get your first newsletter, read it, make whatever decisions you want to make, it's all up to you. I will then send you a questionnaire. Each time I send you a newsletter, I'll send you a questionnaire asking a specific question. I've actually done the letters to Josh Frydenberg and Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister. I'll put those up and show you what those letters look like now. When you click like, you'll actually be signing that letter that you've just seen for both Scott Morrison and with, interesting, with Josh Frydenberg. You'll actually be authorising me to take that letter with your signature and poke it up the nose, if you like, with respect, of Scott Morrison and Josh Frydenberg. All of that costs you $6. You get the choice to tick yes, Les, I like that, or no, Les, I don't like that. It's totally your choice. Hopefully we will serve a majority, which doesn't need, a lot of people ask me the question, oh yeah, you're going to get 13 million people, which is half the Australian people. We don't need that, anywhere near that. A majority under the democratic system is where you've got more yeses than you've got noes, the yeses have it. Now that can be 500, it can be 5,000, it can be 50,000 or 100,000, whatever. Think about that. I have, believe me, I've thought about it. We can do this. We can form the majority, particularly on this subject of selling your assets. We can do it, but it's really up to you. I beg you to please come along with us. Click like if you want. Give us a comment if you like, by all means, and I appreciate every single one of them. But please get with us and subscribe, and let's get this job done. Let's change Australia back to what it used to be. All the best for the moment. God bless Australia.